What a weekend it was for Emma Raducanu.
Championship point number 3. Serve out wide. It's an ace! She's done it with an ace! She's down on the floor. Emma Raducanu is the US Open champion.
The British tennis star, who's 18, won the US Open, becoming the first qualifier to win a Grand Slam and the first British woman to win a major title in 44 years. Understandably, she is pretty happy.
It's an absolute dream. You just have visions of yourself, going up to the box, hugging everyone. Celebrating. That's something that you always think of and you always work for. And for that moment to actually happen, I'm just so grateful.
More than 9 million people tuned in to the Channel 4 coverage of Emma winning, and the drama of her victory was also heard, of course, here on 5 Live. Now, these fans spoke to Nikki Campbell on Your Call this morning.
I was watching that match with exactly the same person that I watched a 17-year-old Boris Becker win Wimbledon for the first time 36 years ago. And I had that same feeling of sort of, this shouldn't be happening, this can't be happening. She's so young.
I was able to watch the match without sort of too much nerves apart from the end, really, when those match points came up. And it sort of brought back the memories of Virginia Wade and watching Wimbledon, and she won there and getting nervous, having to walk out of the room and come back in. I did a little bit of that, but generally I was quite confident through the match.
Now we've got all this energy about tennis and excitement. Tennis clubs should be responding to this by opening up their courts and encourage these kids just to go on, have a quick knock before they play football. Just let them get onto the court and just experience tennis.
She reminded me very much of a young Federer, in as much as she's supremely talented, very professional, very elegant, beautifully balanced. And he didn't bottle it, so I don't see why she can't go all the way and keep us entertained for years to come.
The presenter who's doing the live coverage said, Penman Hill, Barry Mount, we need a Raducanu Ridge. And I thought, no, you're missing something there. It's got to be Raducanu Rise, because of her journey. It's been meteoric, stratospheric.
So, of course, Emma is now a household name and set to be bigger and bigger and bigger globally. She has the world at her feet, doesn't she? But it's a rarity in the UK, a champion tennis player. It's her and Andy Murray, kind of around now. And Virginia Wade, of course, who was there to witness her win the US Open, she was the last, of course, British woman to do so 50-odd years ago. So, is there enough opportunity for children and young people in this country to learn, play, even excel at tennis? Is it an elite sport for the few? Now, I'm not trying, of course, to add a cloud to a silver lining here. I'm just trying to find out, how easy is it if your kid suddenly over the weekend just said, right, I want to play tennis? How easy and how affordable is it to do so here in the UK? Do we have the facilities to encourage people to take it up? Now, more than 9 million people tuned into the Channel 4 coverage, as I said. So there's definitely an appetite for the sport here. So, how easy is it to play tennis in this country if you want to? 85058 is the text number. Call 08085 909 693 if you run a tennis club. How do you ensure that kids from all different backgrounds can access it? After 5:30, we'll be speaking to Emma's coach when she was just 6 years old. But first, let's talk to Paul Jessop. He's the CEO of Tennis for Free, which provides free coach-led sessions around the country. Paul, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
I can imagine that Emma's success is going to have an impact, isn't it, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. This could be off the scale. Obviously, when Andy won Wimbledon, it was slightly more expected, of course. He was one of the top players in the world. He'd been in the Wimbledon final previously, so everybody was sort of prepared for it. But nobody saw this coming, not even close to this. So I think there will be some shockwaves in the tennis world from her incredible success.
Is it unfair to brand tennis as an elite sport?
Yes, I do. I very much think that. I think in any sport, there's obviously a level of cost that comes in. And families all over the country, and mine too, you're probably paying out for dance lessons or football or other sports, and there'll be an element of expenditure required. But I don't think tennis is on a level of any more than these other sports or activities that parents will typically pay for. And in many cases, as with our own charity, we try to make the introductions free. And as Tennis for Free, as a charity, you can come along and jump on a tennis court on one of our sessions throughout the UK, completely free. And it's something you can see if you like. And then if you do, then you can obviously start that pathway. And hopefully people like Emma have really paved the way for a trend in that direction.
How many... So, for instance, the park opposite where I used to live in northwest London, Paul, had a basketball court there, right? And it was packed, absolutely. But I don't know how many free-to-use tennis courts there are in the UK and whether we've seen more of them come along or less over the years. Are you aware of how easy it is to access tennis for free?
Well, it's different everywhere. I mean, the policies across the different councils vary dramatically. Where I am here in Birmingham City Council, courts are primarily free across the areas. North London, there are some parks councils there that have free policies as well. Others will charge for over 16s. Others will charge everybody. But they vary dramatically. But there are a number of tools. Certainly our website, tennisforfree.com, where you can go on and find your nearest free courts where you can join in our free sessions, or the LTA Rally website, where you can find your nearest available free courts. And so if you are looking for a free court, there are the tools out there to find your nearest one, albeit it might not be the first set of courts that you would come across nearest your home.
But I guess once you want to start taking it seriously, especially if you want one-on-one coaching with a tennis coach, then presumably it does get quite expensive, Paul.
I mean, not necessarily it can do, but again, using the subject I brought up earlier, it probably isn't dramatically different to any other one-to-one coaching environment. And I think that's certainly the message I'd like to really get across, because I do think, the impression of Wimbledon, all white, and this horrible label of tennis middle-class sport that keeps getting reinforced, I do feel is somewhat unfair when it really isn't that different. I get to see it at the very grassroots level, and this sport, it really is fantastic, and it is a super way to get kids and adults socially and physically healthy. And should you, as you say, want to take that journey and improve and get better, and decide to take on one-to-one coaching, then there shouldn't really be this perception that it's hugely different to any other sport that you might choose to go down that route instead.
How do these facilities get funded, the ones that you can access? Is it councils? Is it largely charities such as your own, or was it mostly kind of private clubs?
I mean, free court access is generally funded in a number of different ways. For example, ours, we're always looking for private individuals to help who share our goals and of trying to really grow the sport and showcase the sport to people of all ages and levels. So private individuals, grants, the governing bodies, those kind of all help to create free environments. But largely when it comes to playing tennis at a set of local park courts, it really is just a council decision as to whether their policy is to allow kids on for free or all on for free, or whether they feel they need to charge an element of money to sustain the facility. And that general message put forward by those councils that do charge for their courts is very much the message that those courts will need to be renovated at some stage, and that those funds help towards that. But certainly from our perspective at Tennis for Free, we're trying to work with as many free council courts as possible so that the barriers to entry into this sport are as low as possible.
So apparently there are only 54 community indoor tennis centres in the UK, and then there are obviously like private facilities as well. The BBC Sport editor Dan Roan sent me some statistics from the LTA, and in England, so just England alone, 41% of courts are poor, unplayable, which equates to over 1,500 sites. Now, of course, I'm not asking you to take the rap for any of that, Paul, but I'd just like you to comment on that. I mean, if in England alone 41% of the courts are poor and unplayable, after the weekend, kids are like, right, I'm inspired. I mean, that shows they're not being kept to the standard required to actually play tennis on.
Yes, potentially. I think everybody's has seen a set of tennis courts that they would look at and be potentially slightly ashamed of, whether it's a glass bottle thrown over on their local park courts that's not been cleared away, or whether the courts themselves have become a little bit derelict. All I would say, though, on the subject is, as long as those courts are safe, and that really is the number one priority here, as long as those courts are safe, then you don't need to be playing tennis for your first experience on a fantastic club-level set of courts. If it's got a working net and again, the courts are safe, then it should provide that level of enjoyment for you to then, be able to make that informed choice of whether you want to take tennis a bit more seriously and play it more and make it a part of your lifestyle.
I mean, Amazon have said that the money they received from Channel 4 for the rights to broadcast Emma's extraordinary achievement will go into women's tennis in the UK. As we stand, do you have any idea how a charity like Tennis for Free could access some of that £7 million?
I don't know. I'd certainly like to investigate it a little more. That's for sure. But I think it's absolutely fantastic that we've got that scenario from Amazon, and women's tennis, has seen a role model now that, and the importance of a good female role model in sport, especially for obviously young girls, it can't be overstated. I saw a post from Judy Murray of Emma with a photo of Simona Halep. Her dad's Romanian, and that must have been a real role model experience. And also myself, my kids, one of my daughters played and saw a role model at our local Tennis for Free site that were being resurfaced from almost derelict to resurfaced because the courts were very well used at a TFF site called Pipe Hayes. And the world number 13 came along and opened these courts, and my daughter, just 6 years old, was one of the ones at the front, and this 13 in the world, Kristina Mladenovic, helped her cut the ribbon. And from that point onwards, she's always asking, if she's 10 now, about 4 years ago, and she's always asking, how's Kristina? And her tennis started picking up after that. So the importance of female involvement and role models is fantastic, and I really do hope that money from Amazon will really, be well spent in whichever direction it goes in. But it's fantastic times ahead for tennis for sure.
I mean, sport, of course, brings a great deal of joy, as we saw at the Olympics, then the Paralympics. We saw, of course, if you're an England football fan, at the Euros, right up until almost the last moment. Do you believe then that this will also perhaps prompt government into looking at not just tennis, but of course other sports and trying to help? Because again, I mean, austerity has led to local councils having to make very difficult decisions. And sometimes it's kind of leisure activities that suffer in that context, isn't it, Paul?
Yes, absolutely. And I do hope you're right, because it's certainly austerity has seen many, many tennis courts closed over the years. And, towards I think it was, there is a quote somewhere, but please don't quote this. There was 30,000 public tennis courts back in around about the 90s to the early noughties, and that's dropped to below 10,000 courts now from Sport England data on available public tennis courts. So a lot have been dug up over the years, just not been chosen to be renovated, and certainly in areas where there's a latent demand for tennis courts and schemes like ours that really try and get people out of their homes and making the most of these opportunities, then I think it's really important that these courts aren't lost. So absolutely, I really do hope that local councils and other decision policymakers can really jump on this wave, because it really could stand us in good stead for the future if something's done about it while everything is quite hot in the news.
I mean, if someone listening now is keen for their child to get into tennis, or indeed their child has been bugging them, obviously over the summer at the Olympics, probably started bugging them for a skateboard, then a BMX, and now some tennis stuff. Where should they start? What are the first things that they should do, Paul?
Well, certainly the LTA, there's a website, LTA Rally, that will tell you all available tennis opportunities, courts that can be booked free or all paid, coaching courses that are running, the free sessions like ours at tennisforfree.com. Of course, visit tennisforfree.com too if you're looking for, hopefully, we've got 39 venues throughout the UK where we're operating our free scheme. We did have 120 prior to COVID, but we've been hit very hard on that front, as per many charities. So we're building back up. So if there's a set of courts near that we run near to where you live, then obviously jump on free. But LTA Rally is a great place because it will show you everywhere where you can find courts, you can find coaching courses, free, charged. They'll give you the full spectrum of what there is available for you in your local area.
Do you get the sense that the LTA believes there is an image problem with tennis, that it is very middle class, very elitist? Do they accept that that is an issue that they need to work on?
I think yes. I think they do accept there's an image change needing to be had, and I think they're going a long way in doing that. Various people they've brought in to try and showcase the image as more for everybody, and inner cities especially, is something they've worked hard on. And but I do think it's a slightly losing battle, the fact that every single year we get shown, obviously, everybody in all whites on green grass courts, eating strawberries and cream, crowds, obviously. The sport, it's the history, it's the tradition of the sport. And whilst I don't think Wimbledon should change to from what its heritage was, I do think the constant reminder of that, that's seen obviously on TVs worldwide, it does kind of keep reinforcing it itself year on year. So I think it's a slightly losing battle from that perspective, but I do think that the various powers that be, the LTA and other, the ATP, WTA, ITF, are all, working together to try to get, a global image of tennis as being more appealing to everybody, particularly those younger age groups that are trying to find their footing in the sporting world.
I mean, is this about tennis, or is this about Emma Raducanu's story more than anything? Because Channel 4, with some glee, I think, pointed out that the amount of people that watched, a peak audience of 9.2 million Brits, was more than anyone watched Wimbledon, any single match at Wimbledon.
Yeah, I think it's probably both, but I think it's the story primarily. I mean, it really, really is an incredible story to... the record was set, I think, from Emma reaching the final as the only person to have got that far, and then to take the step further and win. It's just incredible. And I was hearing Tim Henman on the Amazon footage, and he was he could barely get his words out. It was just incredible, the effect it's having on everybody who was seeing that. And so I think the story itself is just, I actually can't think of a sporting underdog story. Might be an interesting phone-in for you guys, an interesting sporting story that surpasses that. I mean, there are, whether it be...
well, I guess the Williams sisters, in tennis terms, from where they came from, is...
but none of the Williams sisters came from nowhere to win a Grand Slam, out of nowhere. And again, across the entire sporting spectrum, an underdog story like that, I think there'll be a movie made someday. It really is just incredible.
Well, look, Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. As we are talking about Pauls, and you are a Paul, who's your favourite Paul, Paul Jessop?
Guy, you put me on the spot there.
No, I can ask you anything about tennis, but when I ask you about your favourite Paul, You don't know Paul?
Yeah, I don't. I really don't know.
Your best mate Paul is going to not be happy if you have a best mate called Paul right now.
No, I'm safe on that front. I don't really know too many Pauls that are too close to me. I'm just trying to think of. I'm a Wolves fan ultimately, and there was a Paul Lambert, but I didn't do a great job at the Wolves, so I'm not going to give it him.
I hope he's not listening, bless him.
Yeah. Paul Anacone was a very, very good tennis player and tennis coach. Maybe I'll go with him.
There you go. Good. Paul Jessop, CEO of Tennis for Free. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you now. Thank you.